course, the big question everybody has right now, and I'm going to start with you, Jim Sutter, because China-U.S. trade negotiations, will we get a deal by March 1st? And if we don't, will the deadline be extended so that we can get something worked out?
Michelle, why don't you ask me a difficult question to begin with? What I know about the negotiations is that there have been very good discussions taking place as far back as this past summer, when our U.S. Ag negotiators, so Ambassador Dowd, Undersecretary McKinney, and several others have been meeting with their counterparts in China and talking about how do we work out a deal on agricultural trade, trying to overcome many of the issues that we have, whether it's biotech approvals, other SPS issues, just other little sort of non-tariff trade barriers, trying to work those out. And I think we're making good progress on that.
Dr. Wilson, you know, we have the big issues left, the IP, the IT, so can you get a deal by March 1st, or are we looking at the next $200 billion of tariffs going into place? And if we get a deal, will it include a lot more U.S. ag purchases?
So I follow this stuff with a microscope, and I read this South China Morning Post every day. And this morning, it said, it didn't say officially it won't be March 1st, but they're debating the next dates of meetings, which would be the end of March, either Mar-a-Lago or in China. So that tells me it's probably not going to be March 1st. I'd be curious what happens on March 1st if there's not a meeting by March 1st. Of course, nobody knows that here. But it's a pretty monumental task to sort of unravel these things like intellectual property. You know, these soybeans is easy, but these intellectual property and forced technology transfer, they're monumental, and it's hard-pressed to think you're going to solve those in 90 days.
No doubt. Leslie, as far as China and what corn hopes to get out of it, they've mentioned purchases of corn, of ethanol, and I know you guys are looking at biotech asynchronization. Are those your priorities out of this trade talk?
I would say that's a pretty good summary, Michelle. I mean, we certainly hope that some of the issues, and I think the administration has suggested they're on the table, that we care about, like dealing with asynchronous biotech approvals. And I think you've all heard the horror stories of like 7-year delays. We've seen some new traits shake loose out of the process, including the new chrome corn trait, for example. But that doesn't mean that the actual system is going to change and be more predictable and reliable and conform to the global trading system that, you know, we've signed up for. So that's one of the things we need to see, is that longer term change, so we don't find ourselves, you know, a year from now right back where we started from.
Do you think as well that have we lost that market for good? I mean, we built China as a long-term reputation market. These guys went in for 35 years and worked to develop that market. Have we ruined our long-term relationship with them?
Here's my concern. We've had about 4 major trade disruptions in my career. So that was the Russian grain embargo. We are, instead of exporting to Russia, we're competing with Russia today. We've had something in poultry. We had MIR 162. So they have the ability to retaliate against unreliable supplier. And I've told the North Dakota Soybean Group, and I'm sure you're aware of this, that the #1 priority is try to figure out how to convince China that we're reliable. Because if we don't return to China, you're going to be selling like crazy in Europe and all this, and you're still going to be storing soybeans.
Thanks so much for joining us for our Hot Issues International Marketing panel here from the Northern Corn and Soybean Expo in Fargo.